And welcome to the Darren Woodson Show. Today's guest, we're going to talk with Jonathan Campbell, who is a civil engineer for a company called Kimley Horn, which is kind of contrary to what you would think about engineers, is we're going to talk about communication.
Right.
Shots fired.
The analytical job description versus a very good communicator. And Jonathan is a very good communicator. The three of us know him. Really great conversation, talking through the different communicators, the types that are involved, how to address them. Some really good stuff that we talked about. But before we get to Jonathan's episode, I want to talk about a good partner of ours. In Good Taste.
In Good Taste, man. Listen, one of the, we all sit around, and a lot of us today, including myself, I drink a lot of wine. I drink a lot of wine, but the wine, that I'm buying bottles I have no idea, not educated. In Good Taste has educated me on the process, on the wine purchasing process.
That's right.
And instead of me going out and wasting my time to buy this big bottle I'm not going to like, they give it to you in how many? Seven
to eight bottles.
7 or 8 small bottles. You get to taste them, figure out which one you like, and then go purchase the one you like.
That's right. But what I also love is they give you the resources to educate you on it. So they've got sommeliers, they've got coaches, why each wine is different. I mean, how many times have you tried to describe what kind of wine you like, and you're like, red, easy to drink? Yeah. You know what I mean? But you can actually describe it, and it's a great resource for those, whether you're a new wine drinker or you've been doing it for years. It's an awesome platform. Make sure to check them out.
Go to ingoodtaste.com. You can do virtuals with your family. You can do virtuals with your business. They will provide the wine. They'll send it to you in a package, and you can take a look at it and have those drinks.
Yeah, and something you said a second ago, which is interesting, is you do drink a lot of wine. You don't know what you're doing. Yeah. I don't drink a lot of wine. I have no clue what I'm doing. And the other element is the food pairings.
Yes.
Because part of the reason I like wine is like, this tastes disgusting with what I'm eating.
Yeah. Right.
But what In Good Taste does is they actually can pair a great wine with food and make it all pair together.
Yeah, so one thing I've learned, ice cream and Cabernet don't go good together.
Says you.
Go to ingoodtaste.com.
Yeah. And enjoy the episode.
And welcome to the Darren Woodson Show. Today, for this roundtable, we are joined by a live guest. So this is second time we've done this, I guess, for a roundtable. But today we're going to talk about a topic that is pivotal, and I think is something that the younger generations struggle with. And we're gonna talk through a little bit of that. But today we're joined by Jonathan Campbell. So Jonathan is one of the leads here in the DFW market for a company called Kimley Horn. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Kimley Horn, if you're not really in the commercial space, you may not know who they are. But they are a world-class civil engineering architecture.
No architecture.
Although his title says otherwise.
Landscape architect.
Confusing.
But civil engineering firm, and I've worked because we're in commercial real estate. I've worked a handful of projects with Kimley Horn, and literally like leading the industry and what they do. And so Jonathan's on some really big projects, and if he wants to share those later on, I'll let him do that. But leads the Frisco office, and what we were talking about before the show is really cool. Is how you guys structure your titles within the company. There's no titles. It's just your title is what you do. And you are a landscape designer, landscape architecture and planning. So you walk through developments, big commercial developments, and then you handle the landscape design, I'm assuming drainage, a lot of the
little bit of everything.
Why don't you walk us through that?
Yeah, so we start to finish, start with high level conceptual design of whatever type of project it is, large or small, and then take it through theming, branding, understanding signage and wayfinding, and then really building the bones of whatever it is, street networks, road networks, understanding where utilities, setbacks. And then get into what we kind of consider the meat and potatoes of it, of the detailed landscape, hardscape design, whether it's plazas, streetscapes, I mean, you name it,
Yeah.
community spaces, and then take it all the way through permitting, construction, all the way to turn it all the way over.
And that's something that, so the architects, right? They was, oh, who's the architect of this
Yeah.
building? You know, really, they come in a little bit later on in the process. Usually, civils are the first one to engage
lot of
on a
times.
new development, right? On a ground up development, whether it's greenfield or whatever it may be. But the amount of time and effort and work that engineers put onto it, they're at almost every city planning meeting, whether it's zoning, going to city council meetings. I mean, they really drive the process. The architects play a huge role in designing the space and all that. But I'll tell you what, like when I work with a client, I work much closer with the civil engineers on new projects than I do the architects, because they're in everything.
Yeah.
And usually have a lot of history on the land and,
Yeah.
and know kind of the pitfalls of offsites and what's really going to make the development work.
That's right. So today, although, I love talking about this stuff, I love the development
but
side
Jonathan,
of it.
you're not here to
But
talk about
what
Not
we're
here to talk about
what
this.
we're going
More
to talk about
importantly-
today.
more important.
He's a fan of the show.
Next episode. Next episode.
Let's get down to it.
He's one of our original listeners.
Yeah. And we've had many conversations back and forth, and even through email about you being a fan and being and also, look, we always talk about engaging with the audience, right? This is, having Jonathan come on is something that we definitely wanted and needed to have happen, because these are topics that we all know. We've gotten to know each other, us three, but to have someone else come in on a round table and have a topic, and today's topic is effective communicators, right? Or
Communication.
Communication.
Which-
Way to
need bring us
communicate.
in.
Which
But
is
it's
effective communicators.
Yeah,
That's
there
not
you go.
that's not
Thank you, Ty.
inaccurate. Good job, Darren.
Hey,
Great job,
I
Darren.
actually brought that,
That was
in
good.
a little bit today. Didn't
That was
I?
good, man.
All right, Ty, go back to you, Ty. Go back.
I waited out a little too deep.
I dabbled a little bit. I didn't like it. I'm gonna
Bring
back
it
out.
back in.
No, but like Darren said, us three can give. Sorry, Jonathan. We're off the rails.
Picture Darren, 6 years old, getting into a pool for the first time.
Not for me. Not water, no.
But like Darren said, we can three give our opinions and our experiences, but it's always good to have somebody come in from the outside who his company, his day-to-day life is utilizing the topic very effectively. And today, the communication topic, which we're going to talk about, Kimberly Horn does it just as good as anybody in the way that you communicate with each other, understanding each other and your personalities and how you need to effectively communicate. But this doesn't only apply to business. This applies to your family, your kids, your spouse, whoever. You need to be an effective communicator to have any sort of impact. And you need to understand who you're communicating with to have the type of impact that you're after. So
Right.
thank you for joining us. That whole
and as we
roundabout
talked
way.
about, kind of leading in on what you do on a day-to-day, is understanding the different people that whether it's your internal team, whether it's your client, whether it's the city. So, is it the development services team? Is it planning and zoning? Is it city council? Everybody receives information differently, and being able to manage all that from a corporate perspective and saying, okay, we've got to deliver because we've got to deliver for the client. So we've got to have really effective communication with
internally and externally.
That's exactly
And
right.
understanding, who that is that you're communicating to. What information do they need communicated to them? And what's the most effective way to communicate that to them?
So what makes an effective communicator?
A lot of things. I think being a good listener, I think reading people, and there's all different degrees to that. But, I think also knowing yourself, knowing your own type of communication style, so you can then, once you learn yourself, you can then understand, okay, what are the tendencies of the people you're communicating to, and how do I either need to adjust my method of communicating, whatever that is, so that they receive it the best.
So in the corporate world, so often people get feelings hurt, right? Whether it's from a superior, whether it's from just a colleague that's at the same level, people get offended by the way other people talk to them. In reality, they're not trying to be offensive. They're not trying to talk down. That's just their way of communicating. Yeah. But like you said, understanding how you communicate individually, but then also understanding how the people around you, how they're wired. So then you can kind of cut through the feelings and like, oh, I don't understand why he's
I don't
doing
know that
that.
you're cutting through the feelings. I think you're just being aware of those feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, because I was talking earlier, you know, an example, and I know Marie, she's on our team. You know, she'll listen to this at some point. I'm sure I'll make her. But you know, we were working on this project up late. You know, one evening at the studio, and I'll spare you all the details. But we're working through this. I sat with her. I'm like, okay, this is what we're trying to do. I'll come back and check on you. Like 2 hours later, and it's probably 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. 2 hours later, I come over, and I'm like, you know, hey Marie, how's it going? I can see her. She kind of sets up, gets a little nervous in her chair. She's like, I'm struggling with this. And I'm like, okay, let me drive. So she moves her chair all the way. I sit down. I sit at the computer and I start, you know, working away. I was like, I don't know why you're making this so hard. And I was just being real.
Yeah.
Little did I know, I you know, show her what she needs to do, get up, go back in my office. She's bawling. I didn't know it. I found this out later. What I realized was I could have said the exact same thing to her and just said, let me show you how to make this easier. So in that, and I think we can talk about this too. I think understanding yourself in times of tension or stress, you revert back to those tendencies. Right. So my tendency there was just like, hey, we just need to get this done. We're up here late. Yeah. I don't want to be up here. I don't want you to be up here. Right. But the way I communicated that was obviously very ineffective.
Yes.
Because not only did it upset her, you know, it reduced that you know, her ability to perform in that moment as well. So what I could have said, hey, let me show you to make this easier. Maybe it only took her another 30 minutes to figure it out, but it may have taken her a couple of hours too, you know, after the fact, because of the way I said it to her initially.
You know, also it's, first of all, you're running a sweatshop up at like 10, 11 o'clock. Who the hell's working that damn late at the office? Like, come on,
you don't
man.
work at 10, 11 o'clock
At night in the office?
You don't?
Well, I know
I know
damn
you-
well
I
you
know
don't.
you don't.
I know damn well
because I'm there and you're not.
I'll say something about that. Like in the design field, I think because we have family members.
Don't
be
say
like,
this. My wife's going to hear this. And she's
Yeah,
like,
well,
that's why I work so late.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there's no formula to design. So I don't know, you business guys up there, you know, X plus Y equals Z squared, you know, whatever, and you plug it into the computer. There's no computer.
4:30 hits, we're out, bro.
It must be nice. It must be nice.
Unless it's Friday. Unless it's 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
Oh, man.
But you did hit on something there that speaks loudly. In the football world, the coaches used to always say, know your personnel.
Yeah.
Like know who you're speaking to, right? So, you know, Marie could have been, if Marie was Tyler, you're probably talking to Tyler like in that fashion. Like, hey, Tyler, you're making this too dang hard.
Yeah.
You know, move on. So there's a lot of it in as far as, like you said, you revert back to who you are, but at the same time, it's also knowing your personnel and who you're talking to. Yeah.
But to add a wrinkle to that is maybe Maria is somebody that he could have said that to in a less stressful situation.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Right? So that's what makes this so difficult is you got to understand who they are. You got to understand who you are. But then you also have to understand the situation like you were talking about, Jonathan. Maybe that could have flown by different, or maybe that she could have received that differently in a less stressful situation.
Well, and it's about building trust too.
Yeah.
You know, once you start to trust somebody, you know, and hopefully we'll get into this because I've already kind of, you know, pinpointed where I think you would be on this.
But I can't wait to hear this.
Yeah. But, you know, in that trust situation, if it is like, hey, you want something to be very direct, you know, even if it is stressful, I'm going to be like, dude, quit doing that. Just do this.
Right.
And you're going to be like, that's what I need. Or that person, let's say Ben, you know, who is that person that, like, I need it softer communicated
I'll
to.
be crying, and I'll be crying for sure if you talk to me like
But
that.
then exactly. But if you build that trust, then I can be like, man, stop doing that. Just get this done. And you'll be like, I know where he's coming from.
Right.
That's
so
a
a lot
great
of it's
point.
about building trust too.
Yes, that's a great point.
So,
Go ahead.
No.
No, you go.
Okay.
Communication, you go.
Communication. So you guys at Kimley Horn, and this is a widely used tool. You guys use something called DISC. Talk us through why Kimley Horn uses this and how you implement it on the team, and then the practicality as you work internally.
So Kimberly, we pay for this service. I believe that there is a free assessment that you can go on the DISC website, and this isn't a promotional, podcast.
No kickbacks
DISC.
for you?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I don't know. I'll try if they want to send them. I'll take them. But yeah, it's
Promo code Jonathan Campbell 20% off
2021. That was last year's code. But no, it's a tool because really when you look at it. And you kind of touched on it. Our job is about communication. And a lot of it, certainly for us as landscape architects, not architects, architects as well, though, but it's about communicating design. And in order to get to that design, you got to communicate internally. So and I don't know where Kimberly Horn came up with this or when they started doing it, but typically whenever we hire somebody on, we have them take this DISC assessment. It takes about, 15 minutes, and it's surprisingly accurate in what it gives you for here's your tendencies and communication types. So it's not a personality thing like Myers-Briggs or you mentioned another one, Caliper. But it certainly again makes you aware of what your tendencies are, and then we'll do comparisons for the team. Not every team utilizes this, but for us, we do comparisons where it's here's me to Darren and me to Ben and me to Tyler, and then you're all together so you can see, hey, in this type of environment when we're communicating, this is what's effective, and this is where you guys are going to have to kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's a just another tool. Not everybody decides to use it, but it can be very effective.
Okay, so walk us through just kind of quickly what for those that aren't familiar, what the 4 categories are. And then maybe some characteristics of that, and an example to communicate, like, hey, this is this person right here. This is what you would do, and then go ahead and then you can judge us.
Sure. Get to the point. DISC. Those are the 4 categories, and the D is dominance, I influence, S steadiness, C conscientiousness. Well, I didn't know if I would be able to get that out. I'm from Oklahoma.
That's a hard word.
That's clean.
But within that, I mean, there's positives and negatives. So like the D, the dominance, they're very direct, results oriented, firm, strong-willed, forceful in some instances. So that's some of those things like, hey, you got to kind of be aware of that a little bit. They're the outgoing. I'm a high I. So, I'm the, enthusiastic, optimistic, high-spirited, lively. You're trying to encourage others and engage others. The S, very even-tempered, accommodating, patient, humble, tactful. And the C, analytical, reserved, precise, a lot of times very private. So, as people get categorized into this, and certainly I'll talk about kind of from a design charrette perspective, I'm a high I. I want everybody, hey, let's all get around the table. I'm going to roll out the trash paper. You grab a pen, you grab a pen. But if you're a C, you don't want to be, you want to sit back and kind of think about that process a little bit. You want to analyze before, I'm drawing the whole time. And I don't care if I draw something bad, that may, spur another idea. But if you're that C, you're going to be like, man, I want to think about this a little bit. So you're going to be uncomfortable in that situation. So in that dynamic, I've got to be, not careful, but aware of that C of saying like, hey, we're going to work on this stuff a little bit over here. Give Tyler a little bit of time. And then, hey, what do you think about this? You've probably had some time to process. That's how I get you to engage in that process.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that. All right. So walk us through it.
Well, yeah.
I can guess. I think I can guess.
Well, so a little background on this. So Jonathan and I met for the first time, 2 months ago?
Yeah, about.
And you had been listening from the beginning, which was last March.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because you said, and I'll let you finish the story.
It was a weird situation to go to lunch with a guy I'd never met before and feel like I know so much about him. Yeah. And even, I had met Darren before. I've talked to you on the phone a couple times, but don't know you guys. I'm like, this is what a stalker feels like. Like, y'all don't know me, but I know a lot about you. It's kind of weird a little bit.
I left lunch weeping. It was a great session.
Exactly. So, I did when I was talking to Ben, like, hey, I kind of think, and here's something else I'll say about this. Whenever you do this assessment, again, not to pitch it, but it's not just put you in a category and you in a category. You can have pieces of
Yes.
all of these within you.
Right.
Yeah.
You just may have tendencies towards certain aspects. So
Typically, they'll give you 2 letters in the results. Isn't that right?
Yeah.
Like it's like your majority this, and then you've got like a.
it depends on where you're at. So like I am a high I. So I am in the middle of the I. You can't be any more I. But for instance, my wife, who we run our group in Frisco, she is an SI. So she's predominantly an S, but has some I tendencies. We've got some other people that are CS, CD, have some tendencies, but so yes, to some extent, it does kind of dual categorize you depending on where you're at on the wheel.
So give it to us. What is Tyler?
All right, so
how do you categorize Tyler?
I feel like, and again, this is so weird because it's like, man, I really
Don't hold back.
know you guys.
Don't hold back
No,
on,
I'm not.
those guys. Don't hold back on these two.
And depending on what you think I am, deliver it in that manner.
So I would say Tyler is probably an SC. Again, like listen to the podcast, like a lot of the stories that you've told, of saying like, hey, you really think about other people and other people's situations.
So what is that? Give us the S again.
So the S is steadiness, again, accommodating, patient, humble, tactful. The C is very analytical. I don't remember which episode it was, but when y'all were kind of busting on him saying like, hey, so why exactly do I need to run that gap? And like I want to know every little thing about it.
Yeah.
He wants some check boxes as a part of that, is my guess. My guess.
We're going to take this test, by the way, and see how accurate this is.
All right.
Yeah.
I will agree with that. I think that those are. I was thinking maybe SI just because the energy.
Yeah, maybe.
Like some of that. Like I want everybody to be involved and I want everybody to do that. But the SC does make sense.
But
give us an example of how you would talk to Tyler and how you wouldn't talk to Tyler.
Well, so I think talking about how in that charrette setting, I think again, and this is where I say you may have some I tendencies, or maybe you're an SI with some C tendencies.
Hey, I'm sick.
Yeah,
Sick, dog.
I think
haven't heard that one.
You're a dick. You're a DIC.
Yeah. I'm probably going to use that one. But I think talking to you, if you are that S, and like maybe I've got to give you some constructive criticism. If I'm like, man, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you're not going to respond to that. So it's kind of the sandwich model. I would probably come to you and say like, man, you're doing this great, you're doing this great. Man, you need to work on these things, and then end with some positive stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that accurate?
I totally so I think back to coaching. I mean, I love feedback. I love getting the coaching. I love that. But I agree. I've probably already, and this is where the C, I think, I've already figured out what I've done wrong. So I already know it, right? Because I'm hypercritical. I think you and I are very similar in that. Hypercritical of myself, and like I know where my shortfalls are. Do I change them all the time? No, not always. But I already know them. But I also love the encouragement. So if a coach is just telling me I'm crappy and I'm not good or I'm not this,
it's not going to motivate you.
It doesn't help me. It really doesn't get me jacked up to be better because I'm already hearing that. All you did was reinforce what I already think in my head. So that's right on. That's spot on.
That's interesting. Just
right,
from
Ben.
listening to us.
Ben?
Yeah, go. I'll do next.
Man, so you are probably the hardest to pin for me. Maybe it's just because these guys
Which
talk
automatically
so much
makes
on
him a
the
C,
podcast.
right?
Yeah.
Automatically just
Like
You just reinforced what he just said. It's because you guys talk so much. You didn't even hear what he said because you were ready to talk.
It's hard to get a read on Ben when y'all don't let him get any words
We can
in.
let
but,
him speak.
But
I paid him.
He asked us a question.
It's come to the point where it's not even we don't let him. He just takes it. He just goes.
I paid him to say.
I was going to say
nice
he told me he would take me to steak dinner to say that. So just tell me what time.
I got you.
I think you're probably a little bit more C than S. Now, I mean, I think in y'all's genre of work, I think you have to have some I in you. You got to be outgoing, the sales part of it. And again, maybe this is me, maybe not having a great understanding of everything that you guys do day to day. But I think the analytics and certainly the accommodating and the patient, that's my guess for you is similar. But I think to me, you do seem more outgoing than maybe.
Oh,
you
for
do.
sure. I can be outgoing in certain scenarios.
Like you
but
force yourself into it maybe?
Yeah, it's not
Yeah.
comfortable. I am very much the one to that example you used earlier. If we're all working on a project, I'm going to sit back
Yeah.
and I'm going to kind of analyze and wait a little bit, and then I'll give my perspective on it. No,
In
you're
familiar
exactly right.
situations for him, like that's when he's got, I think Ben, and he's got a small group of people that he's really, really comfortable around, and like hilarious, right? But you put him into a large setting that he's not familiar with, it's a very different delivery. I think
I feel like hell is networking events. That's what
I
I
was
feel
just
like.
going to bring that up. You know, I go into those and I'm like, great. I got so many people that I'm going to meet.
Yeah.
But here's the negative to that. You know, and again, the effective communication. You'll go in there and you'll make 2 really meaningful relationships.
Right.
And I'll go in there and hand out 30 business cards and be like, who was it that I talked to today? You know, so there's
he's
some
really
of that
strategic.
too.
Like he's very strategic in how he approaches things.
Yeah.
Like he's the processor, and then I think he's right. I think you're right. He's an SC because he's steady, and he has some humility about him as well. So I think that's about
Guys, you guys are great. Thank you. All right, enough about me. I'm ready. The big show, the big dog. What is Darren?
Darren's a D, for sure.
Did you call me?
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. There's a camera on, so you can't do anything too bad, right?
We have video evidence here.
Don't turn the camera off.
Call me.
hey, what a D, man!
So we're gonna start saying this. Darren, quit being such a D.
All right, so this will be used ongoing.
I'm short-lived.
Remind us about the D.
But I mean,
Maybe give some positives about the D too at the end.
Oh yeah. But I mean, there
write
definitely
this
are
down.
positives because you've got to get some stuff done, right? If it's just a bunch of me, you know, like, oh, let's talk about all these things. No, when are you going to put the rubber to the road? Where are you going to get some stuff done? And I think that is the big advantage of being a D, more dominant, you know, in that communication type, because you know you're results oriented. You got to have that balance, and I think that's probably why y'all work well together, because you have a lot of that balance. So I think, you know, from that standpoint, I mean, y'all talking about it before of, you know, the group text that somebody doesn't respond to, or, you know, man, I don't need this big dissertation. Just give me the bullet points.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got a lot of clients that are Ds. I think in many situations, like engineers are Ds. They're just get it done, or they're Cs, like very, very detail oriented. And a lot of the developers that we work with are former engineers or had some engineering background. So, you know, from that standpoint, that communicating with a D, again, like, I want to give you the whole story. You don't care about the whole story.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my God. My wife is like, hey, she's got ammo. You get my wife, and she says that about me every day. Like, you don't want the fluff.
No.
You just want
Give
what
me
it
the
is.
details.
Because I don't have time. Like, I don't want to read. And I don't know is that an age thing though? Because I think as I've gotten older, I think I'm more.
You're honoring. You're honoring.
Yeah, it's not that I'm honoring. I
ain't got time for this.
Exactly. I don't have time for it. Just give me the meat of it and let's move on. I know I am.
Yeah.
When you described it earlier, a D, I was like, oh, that's Jaden. I
Check.
got a question. Jaden, I got a question. Which one am I? My son, Jaden.
Jaden's is running our switcher today. He's Darren's son, and he just confirmed.
Yeah.
That's what you are.
But again, you know, if that goes into clients or at home, you know, at home, if Tiffany is trying to like give you some download, she knows or should.
No, she doesn't.
Yeah.
She's going to download.
Maybe not.
Anyway.
Yeah.
She's just going to download.
No, and that's a great point is that because I've known Darren since 2014, 15?
Yeah.
And I'm not a dominant, I'm not a D like he is. And so it's learning over these years for us to communicate effectively. I've got to reduce, because I want to give him this full backstory. I want to give, you know, the context.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about all that.
But you know what? I think that's the communication, and specifically he and I, is he knows how to talk to me like, hey, we need to do this. Like, I think you've gotten there to the point where
Learning slowly.
If we have to do something, then he's going to say, hey, you know, sit down, let's do it. And I'm okay with that. Like,
But that's
right.
that trust that y'all build
Yeah.
too.
If he, on the reverse side, if he does that to me, I'm sitting, oh man, what did I do wrong?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh man, he must not like me.
And,
like,
and
that's-
on the backward side of that, of like, you know, again, and it took me a while to kind of understand this with the client. If I got a client who's a D and I'm like, you know, and I get that email, Jonathan, where are we at on this? And that's the whole email. I'm like, I'm reading it. I'm going, oh God, he's pissed off. I've missed something, whatever. Really, he's just being like, hey, just give me an update.
Yeah.
Where are we at?
I tell you what, looking for houses. Here's where I know, looking for a house or a property and you have a realtor with you, there's no waste of time. Like if I'm looking in my past of looking for a house.
I was like, wait, you're looking for a house?
I'll walk up to a house and I'll say, no, I don't like it.
Out.
Let's go. Go to the next.
Really? Is that quick for you?
It's that quick. No, I don't like it.
I'm so the anti. I mean, let's go look at it. Sell me on it.
No, I just
tell me what the family was like that lived here.
But don't you guys feel like that's a waste of their time?
No.
Like, not only is it a waste of your time, but it's a waste of their time as well.
Yeah.
Because they're going to show me a house.
Yeah.
In which I already know that I don't like.
Dude, you're giving great ammo for any realtors out there right now, by the way, for you.
For sure.
Yeah. Hey, cold call Darren. This is how you talk to him.
But it's a good point. I was on a tour. I was on a tour last week with a group, and it was a sublease of a client of mine, and he walked in, and we looked at one portion of it, and then we walked out, and he's like, "How much is it again?" And I gave him the price, and he goes, "No, we're done." At first I'm like, "What the hell? What are you talking about?" But then I'm like, okay, I just saved myself 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
Of showing him everything else, talking through it. And he goes, no, this just doesn't work. It was like,
yeah. See, I'm
okay,
the one that I would
appreciate
go
it.
through that just to accommodate. Like he worked hard on this. He put this option in front of me.
That's what I would think.
And that's the S.
Yeah, I'm just gonna let's just go through this. And at the end, I'll tell them, hey, this is not
no. And I'll put also it was really good, but
I
feel good about wasting his time.
Yeah, exactly. You just wasting a man's time.
when you word it that way, you're right.
So in our office at ESRP, who would you say is the strongest D? And I'm thinking of two.
Strongest D's. Brad Struck.
Yep.
And I don't know if Damien
No,
is.
she founded the company.
Yes.
Yeah, Sharon. Yeah, Sharon.
Literally, like,
yeah.
I start to tell a story.
Yes.
Stop.
Yeah.
What's the point of this?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, and I'm like, wait, what? I totally offended her.
Yeah.
But she just needs the information.
yeah.
She needs it now.
Sharon.
She needs to simple. What are we trying to
Sharon is,
accomplish?
yeah.
Give it to me and let's go do
And,
it.
and that's a little behind the scenes of our company, but how it applies to you guys listening. If your boss is a D and you're going to bring an idea to him, and Jonathan, you speak to this better than me.
Yeah.
You better go and you better bring right to the point.
Yeah, your email can't be 3, 4, 5 paragraphs.
Right.
Yeah. It's really quick, concise, 4 bullet points. What do we need to accomplish? Boom, there it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how have you seen effective communication with Ds? You gave that example a bit earlier. Maybe take it away from work. Maybe a setting. Maybe with your family. You mentioned actually. Let's pivot a little bit. You mentioned you work with your wife, and so there's a way that you communicate with her at work. I'm guessing. Is it the same way at home? How does that dynamic work?
I always say I'm the boss at work and the boss at home. So again, there's witnesses.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah, she won't listen to this, right?
Yeah,
We'll edit that out.
She's gonna slap me through the
What's your
camera
wife's
somehow.
name?
Leah.
Yeah.
Leah.
Boss.
Yeah.
She knew who the boss is.
She knows who I am. We've been married a long time, so she's just rolling her eyes right now for sure. But no, so she is an SI. And I have migrated a little bit towards the ID work-wise. And we were talking about this last night kind of before the podcast. And I think that's a good thing too of like as us running the team at work, we are enough the same but enough different that like she'll come to me and be like, Jonathan, you need to calm down on that. Slow down how you're about to say that to whoever.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, Lee, you need to speak up. Like you need to tell this person this. Right. So it's a good balance for sure. Now at home, I mean, normally people are like, oh, you work with your wife. What's wrong with that guy? but it's worked well. We worked separately. She's always been with Kimberly Horn, and then she was at Kimberly Horn 10 years before I came over. I always just say she's a terrible recruiter because it took her a decade to get me to come to Kimberly Horn. But it's worked really well for us because of. We have a very similar background. We understand each other. Yeah. We've known each other since we were like 2.5. Wow. But because of that, we can bounce things off of each other really well. It helps at home, but hey, don't get me wrong. I say plenty of stuff that I regret to her, at home all the time.
Right. Because you're going to get caught up in the emotion, and that just tends to happen.
And it's all about, hey, even though we've we've built a lifetime of trust into each other that, you know, she could speak her mind, I can speak my mind. Doesn't mean she doesn't want to hear it. You know?
Right.
So that is definitely a
Yeah.
Yeah. Darren, I want to ask you, you know, we're talking about kids and spouse, because you have 3 grown kids. You have a younger son, but none of us, how old is your oldest, Jonathan?
she just turned 6 yesterday.
Okay, so I'm going to eliminate the young kids because talking to them is like talking to Satan himself. But
Wow.
how do you communicate with your 3 kids? I've got to imagine there's a different approach for each
absolutely. So my oldest DJ is a D.
child. Okay.
He's a D. So I'm talking to myself when I look at DJ. And that's the reason why we
butt heads.
butt heads. We go at each other. And I did a Feel Good Friday one day, and I talked about DJ. It's just, I'm looking in the mirror, and he doesn't get butt hurt. He's easy. It's an easy communication. It's pretty quick. Hey, you need to do this. All right. Hey, Dad, you didn't do this right. Do this, blah, blah, blah. So we just go back and forth. It's fine. No problem. My daughter is a processor. She is a SC for sure. She's an SC.
Which is your opposite.
It was my opposite. And it's crazy how this conversation is going about, because we're going through the disc deal, and I'm listening to this, and I'm going, how I'm communicating with my daughter. And the reason why she has my heart is because she can pull at those strings. Like, she makes me level. She stops me from being just a D. You know, I tap into a little bit of the I, and, you know, I become creative.
Sure.
I have to be creative with her, because she doesn't respond to me just being direct with her.
Yeah.
Right. So Jaden is a little bit.
Who's sitting here listening, by the way?
Yeah, he's sitting here. So I'm gonna be a D.
He called you a D real quick. So
He did call. I would say Jaden is more an S. He's steady across the board. It reminds me of Tyler in a lot of ways. Like, Tyler and Jaden are very similar in some ways because of the way of their approach on things. So,
By the way, S stands for savage.
savage.
Just to be clear.
sensitive.
It can be a little sensitive about things, and his approach is different too. I mean, very different in the fact of how I talk to him. Now, sometimes the emotions take over.
Yeah.
But I know I'm not gonna get a response. Like, there are things that I say to my son, to Jaden, that I'm not gonna get a response back. He's gonna.
Yeah. Is that something you like? How much pride was there in you to have to adjust your message to each one of your kids?
And you know, it's not, because I've learned that in my time playing football, being a captain of a football team. Tyler, you've been in situations in college or whatnot when you have to talk to individuals. You got to know your personnel. That's the life-saving. That's how you become a leader.
Yeah.
I think is if you can understand. And I didn't have this assessment back then, but you get to know certain guys, and you say, okay, well, you know, maybe this guy got to build him up before I tear his ass down.
Right.
Right? I'm going to tear him down,
Yeah.
but I got to build him up and tell him all the great things he does.
Yeah.
Ben, I got to give you all the good, and then, okay, I'm going to spice it. I'm going to sneak this into you and say, hey, dude, but you got to perform.
Yeah. I'll stop crying eventually.
Yeah. But that's the approach. So it was kind of easy, and specifically being in a room with, I don't care if you're a DISC in the locker room, you're an alpha.
Yeah.
You're going to be a dog.
Yeah.
You made it to that level. So I got to talk to you in a certain way. I just got to know how to push the right buttons.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I even think, and you say you disregard the younger kids, but I mean, I
was actually going to go.
My 9 and 6 year old, like I'm already seeing those traits in him.
Yeah.
Like, my son for sure is an S, right? Like, I've got to build him up for sure. Like, he responds if you compliment him, then he's like, all right, now I'm good. But if you treat him like a D, he curls up in a ball and he doesn't want to talk. Like, he pushes back. That's not him. Whereas my daughter tends to be more of a D. I wouldn't say she's all the way there. I'd say she's probably more of an I, like a DI, because she's very rule oriented. She's very structured. She does certain things and she knocks it out, right? And you can tell her what to fix and she'll fix it. But at the same time, like, she loves people. She loves being around. She's got the high energy. She's got all those things. But definitely it's funny because as a parent, it's hard. You brought that up, like treating your kids differently because you have to. And I had this conversation with my parents literally last night. Like my older brother is very different than me. And even really, to be honest, like maybe on the verge of like Asperger's, right? So it's just very different. And talking to my mom, like she carried that because it wasn't something that anybody ever talked about, right? And so like how she communicated with him is how she thought she needed to communicate as opposed to what he needed.
Right.
And how she communicated with me, where like, it was just very different. And so this is really important for parents and understanding 100%. That just because you communicate or treat your kids differently doesn't mean that you love anyone, but because you have to get into the kids and you have to get them to respond, especially at a young age. So start noticing this at a young age, because then the messaging actually lands at an early age, and that's when the influence starts.
It's all about results, right? So it's, what do you do to try to get those results?
That's right.
So what is Tiff?
She's an I.
She's an I.
She's an I for sure.
Huh.
For sure. She's got some D in her. She's got some D. I mean,
oh, come on, dog. Stop.
I know.
Come on, man. I know. See, we teed you up for that, man.
You can't have this discussion without going there.
Move on.
Hey, I'm trying to share this in a professional setting.
Come on, man.
I'm over here condemning you, but that was literally on my mind very first.
I know. You're terrible. I never went that way.
But yeah, I would say
children.
I would say she's definitely an I. She's on that side. Very much, influence. She loves people. She's energy. She wants everybody involved. She wants to work as a group. She doesn't ever really like to do anything on her own. Like she wants to always be around people. So I would definitely.
But when she doesn't get that, it's tough.
It is.
Right?
Yes.
So when the family doesn't want to go do something that she's super excited about, it's tough.
That's right. Yeah, it is very true. And I just think of even probably the situation that I've put her in the last 4.5 years or so is I have put her in, and this is funny you say that, I have put her in very uncomfortable situations for her because she has had to carry the load at home by herself while I'm at home mingling and doing the things that she wants to do, right? That she was designed to do.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit because, and Jonathan, you and I spoke about this before. Just real world example, you are at, let's say in Tyler's scenario, Tyler's at work all day. He's tired. He's interacting with people. He's worn out. He comes home to a wife who's equally as fatigued from dealing with the kids all day. I mean, that's just a chemistry lesson of, that's just an explosion waiting to happen if Tyler comes home and is communicating with her in a way that she doesn't resonate with.
Oh, yeah. So,
Tyler, can you think of any examples maybe where that happened in real world life where you came home, maybe you said something you had no intention for it to be negative,
or even for dinner.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Or even worse, I don't say anything or I don't communicate.
Right.
Because she's been begging for craving that.
That's right.
Right.
That's exactly right. And to have some interaction and adult interaction. Yeah. So I mean, there's all sorts of, and that second scenario I brought up is probably more the consistent trend because for me, it's like, okay, I get home and then I'm tired and I either have more work to do or I want to be able to decompress.
Don't work late, right?
No, we don't. Yeah. Well, we work late at home, but it's not in the office. But 120 degrees in a little box, a little sweatshop.
It is a sweatshop.
Yeah, it is a sweatshop. 11 o'clock.
I'm gonna catch so much hell for that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I'm gonna give you an example, and I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this or not, but this just happened to me a few weeks ago. So we're moving, or we just moved. Stressful time for everybody. Admittedly, my wife has taken on a whole lot more of the work as far as getting us packed up, moving, organized, all that good stuff. So she's done a ton of that. And I haven't been as helpful in that because of obviously, going into work every day. And I mean, it was just like it was yesterday. This was a week or two ago. Something happened. She said something and I responded with, I just want to make you happy. You've been in a horrible mood the last few weeks.
Oh, nice.
And immediately she turns around and goes to the room. And I thought, I mean, it was like word vomit. Like I'm saying these things, like don't
like,
say
"Oh,
it.
I'm not a D. I'm not a D. Why am I acting like a D?
Don't
Acting
finish.
like Darren.
But that is the worst.
He told me to say it.
Yeah, but that's the worst possible thing I could have said in that scenario. Until you open the show with the example with your coworker, I could have asked a question in that scenario, or I could have
What can I do to-
how
what
could
can
I
I
have
do to help you
approached?
out?
Yes. You've been taking on so much. How can I be a better help around here to relieve some of the stress versus just giving it
Hammer it,
And so that's a real world example of just one small little communication error as far as my tone and what I said and the directness of what I said completely just threw it
Talk
off.
about tone. Talk about like the nonverbal
Body language,
communication aspects
Yeah.
of these and how important that is in communicating.
And so much so, again, I'll kind of go back to, on the work side, for us, design and in this virtual environment is so difficult. I mean, the majority of our team was itching to get back to the office because you can't sit around the table and kind of,
Yell each other
word
out.
vomit ideas, around. But not only that, with clients, there's so much that you can do effectively communicating to pick up on body language, facial expressions. Like D's, if you like say something, that they're not on board with, it's immediately like, man, what we waste my time, looking at the clock. Like, I need to speed this presentation up, a little bit.
The D's just have that RBF all the time.
Darren thinks
I
that
feel
about 90% of of Like, all right, let's go. Let's keep it.
Yeah.
Like,
Keep it
guys,
moving. Keep it moving.
we could have accomplished this show in 6 minutes, guys. We're going on minute 52. What are we doing here still?
Oh, why are we on bullet point number 37? Yeah. But seriously, there's a lot of nonverbal communication, talking about being a good listener, and reading people's, gestures and body language, is so beneficial. Again, not only in the professional world, but at home. Yeah. I get some eye rolls.
Right.
I know if I get an eye roll, I better not push anymore, and try not to get to that eye roll. But, a lot of that body language is very
You know what?
beneficial.
Also, I think, being a great communicator is also being responsive, right? I mean, in going back and forth, and just being able to listen and then respond back, right? But things have changed in the fact of there was a time where we didn't have access to emails and text and social media, and it was basically communication was just verbally in person.
Or pick up the phone.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I
now,
can't stand that. I don't like talking on the phone at all.
Such a millennial.
Such a millennial.
Seriously,
it's terrible.
My phone
terrible.
does not get used as a phone.
Yeah, it
It's
does,
a
'cause you
text.
call
It's
me.
a text and Instagram machine.
call.
Is what it is.
You do pick up the phone when you need something. You're calling. But let's talk about this because the communicator has gone from just an in-person person to now. Like, I always felt like I was a really good communicator in person. I suck as a communicator on email, text, social media, because I'm not responsive.
Yeah.
It takes me forever to read.
Well, and I think we're similar in that, like, for me, if I'm texting or emailing, I want to make sure my emotions and my non-verbal. So I do the ...
Oh, dude,
and then
you gotta see his emails. They're like,
Semicolon,
I save Tyler's emails for examples because I
what
suck
not to
at
do.
what to do. Like, I gotta add some of that I in there, some of
But
that
like,
S
if
in
I
there.
feel a certain way, I want the messaging to be received the way that I'm thinking it. And that's a great topic to talk through because context is lost in communication nowadays through text, through emails, through messaging, right? So I don't ever know what they're feeling because, again, you get a thumbs up now as a response.
Or what I was talking about earlier, the client,
I know.
the client who's the D, if Darren would have called me and been like, hey, where are we at on this? Or just sent me the email, where are we at on this? I can get something from at least the phone call,
That's right.
of like tone, of like, hey man, what's going on? Where are we at on this? But in your email, you're, driving in your Tesla, as it auto drives
And
down
think
the road.
about
I'm like,
in business-
where are we at? Send. And I got to go to the next 15 emails that I got to get.
And think about it in business, right? Now to be, let's just say sales, to be an effective communicator, you have to be an effective navigator of LinkedIn, right? Like that, think about that whole thing, right? It's just like, as opposed to like going and creating relationships and like physically in person doing those things. Now it's about, okay, how do I get to you? How do I ask this person to introduce me to here and this and like this whole map? I mean, there's literally businesses built on training people how to communicate through LinkedIn.
Right.
And it's just so different, and the art of communication is lost now. It's just morphed into so many different things. And I think it's more efficient, but it's less effective.
Oh, I 100%. You know, I we've been talking about it, like all the Zoom calls and WebEx and GoTo, you know, all these. I'm on them all the time where people, you know, the people that share their video, and half the time people don't share their video, that share their video, and they're over here, you know, typing. And they're like, oh, sorry, can you repeat that? I'm like, pay attention. You know, oh, it's so beneficial. We didn't have to drive 30 minutes to that meeting, but we just met for an hour and got nothing done.
Right.
Yes.
You know, so same thing. You know, I think the in-person, you know, is so much more effective, but this is where we're going. So how do we combat this, or how do we challenge this to say, we need to make sure that people are being attentive and that you can communicate effectively through these other platforms.
I'm the guy on Zoom that I don't say anything the whole time, and at the end I'm just, all right, thanks guys.
Thanks everybody. Like, who was that?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think of even that, right? If someone's talking in person, if I'm taking notes and listening to you, right, and I'm looking at my paper, you know that I'm engaged, even though I'm taking notes and I'm looking at it, right? But on Zoom, all you see is a screen from here up, and you see this. You think, okay, this person's not paying attention. So you don't pick up on those cues, right?
That's a good point, though, Tyler, because you are great at that, of being an active listener. And I can think back to before Zoom when we would have meetings in person. You are the guy. You're taking notes, and the listener feeds off, the speaker feeds off of that.
Yeah.
Because
like,
you're actively
I said
listening.
something good or something bad.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tyler's engaged. Tyler's great at giving that nonverbal feedback of, hey, I'm engaged, I'm listening. But you're right. That gets lost on Zoom because there's no feedback.
Yeah.
You do speeches for, part of your, income. And I can't imagine how difficult that must be.
How hard that is, because there's zero energy.
Yeah,
right?
Zero
do a
energy.
Zoom
And
speech.
that's the hardest thing in doing speaking engagements now, is because when you have an audience, you get the head nods.
Yeah.
You get
The
that
smiles.
was funny.
Right.
There's energy in the
Yeah.
room, right?
Yeah.
And then you get on the Zoom calls and it's just you talking to a camera.
Yeah.
And you can't feel it.
Yeah.
That's really hard to
And I think too, and I want to hit on the listening a little bit more. And being,
And I'm terrible at this, by the way.
I try to, but I also think of sometimes when I listen so that I can respond. Right, you listen to respond rather than really truly listening.
100%. I have such a hard time listening to what you say because I'm waiting for the chance to say something else,
Yes.
and that's the I.
Boy.
So I've got to work on that.
Yeah, it's
I can see both of y'all being that way. Like, I just want to respond.
yeah.
100%.
But
It's hard.
that's where okay, let's slow it down. And the fast pace of this, Zoom, FaceTime, email, right, is it's lost, right? And you don't get to actually be in the situation, read people, listen, because in person, you really, you could tell if someone's full of shit, really, honestly. Right? You could tell when they're just making it up. But I feel like it's lost in that. And I just think being able to take a step back, slow it down, and you can feel when someone's saying something important and engaging in it, understanding. And I think as a culture, how much better we can be as communicators if we did stop and listen, and actually not just listen for the response. And again, I'm speaking to myself, listen to make a response, but truly listen to soak in the information. Because think about how much we miss out on. And I think of things like, I know he said something about that, but I was so concerned about what my answer was that I missed it. So now I got to go back and ask it again. And I'm the guy, I'm the D that is, asking for a second time what he already told me.
Right.
It's really important to make sure you stop, really listen, but then also notice all the other cues that they're giving.
And I'm curious to know, if we're looking at this assessment, like the I's and the S's, are they more? Do they have the? I think the I's and the S's probably have a better ability to communicate via text, email. I guarantee they're. I guarantee they're because as a D, Like I'm so unresponsive and everything is so short. It comes off as, oh, you're being an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm not. If I'm in the sales game and I'm out there and I can't put my words together, or I'm just real short to it and asking questions, that's not a good communicator.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, maybe not a good communicator, just different.
Yeah.
Different communicator.
Yeah.
But I think there's gotta be
maybe
more.
these
I
weren't
think it's less effective.
It's
Maybe
less
these
effective.
weren't made for this 2021 age.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Maybe
But
email
listen to what I'm
isn't
saying. The digital world, the emails, the social media side. Because again, going back to Tyler is really good and very responsive, right? So he listens well, and through that he's responsive in the fact if you look at his emails, shit, man. I mean, he's talking to you. Like there's actual great communication through this, and I can read through it and go, okay, I get where you are. On my emails, it's just
This, and this.
it's black, white, and you can't really feel.
But
like, the
positives,
passion within
positives
there.
and negatives to both. The positives for you is that you can move on to the next thing. Where I spend 45 minutes writing an email, and that's what I get. I get coaching a lot internally when I'm at work. Is like, hey, you got to be quick, got to be to the point. Get this, because now you're spending 45 minutes on an email that could have been done in 5 minutes, and then you could have been on to the next thing.
Thanks for the dissertation, but I
Yeah.
still got the 5 bullet points.
But
out of that.
I don't
That's
know
right.
how many times I'll just be honest here on the set. I don't know how many times I'll save some of his emails, and I'll just take like,
paste.
Cutting it.
I'm not gonna take the whole
Man,
thing.
Darren's a really good communicator all of a sudden.
But it's because I know my weakness. I know that,
And that's a lot of
But
it.
I have to take some of those little things. Okay, that's a really good nugget. Let me pull that one out and use it.
And to that point, that's how I want to wrap this up is what you just said. How much value, Jonathan, is there in understanding your weakness and trying to attack them and make them better, or understanding your weaknesses and just communicating the way that you are and sticking to that? Is there any value in trying to make yourself better if it's something that's not your strong suit when it comes to
Absolutely.
communication?
I think you should all, in my opinion, I think you should always strive to improve the things that you're deficient at, but at the same time understand what you're efficient at, and then as you're continuing trying to improve that, surround yourself with those people, like whether it's in your personal life or at work. Understand where you can use the Bens and the Tylers and the Darrens and make that entire team so that the end product is better, so that they can help out where I'm deficient. You know, if talking about going to meetings and not listening, I'm waiting to say my thing. You know, I bring somebody else to the meeting. Bring somebody else to the meeting that they're a better listener. You know, they're young people all the time. Like they want to go to meetings. Like, and then they go and realize, like, this isn't as glamorous as I thought it was, whatever. But hey, if you're going to go, be there and understand what's going on, listen to what's going on, help me listen. And I'll say that to them. Help me listen during the meeting as I'm, waving my arms and using fat pens on trace paper or whatever. Help me listen to what is being responded to.
Yeah.
But I think that, to me, that's been the big benefit of this DISC assessment, in using it to grow our team, of understanding you got to have a balanced team. You got to have balanced people around you so you can be successful. Aside from just communication, just different perspectives. Diversity is such a big thing being talked about, in the last year or so. Having a diverse group around you is going to make it so much better. And I mean, we do that just from the standpoint of hiring from different schools, different areas of the country, so you get different perspective, certainly as we're talking about design, but you're getting different personality types too.
Yeah.
So when we're interviewing, and we talked about this earlier, we're not saying, hey, take this test, but we're trying to figure out, okay, where are we deficient as a team? Where can we kind of see this person filling in so they can help balance the team?
And
Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think what I captured from that, one of the most important things about communication is just awareness.
Yeah.
Awareness, how you operate, but then those around you, how they communicate as well. Because again, then you can if you have the emotional intelligence to see it from another person's perspective, then you can then start to receive that communication from the heart that they have behind that, or the meaning that they have behind that, instead of just through your lens. Now, okay, I can actually accept that information if I'm aware, if I can take a step back. Okay, how does Darren communicate, or how does Ben communicate, or how does Jonathan communicate? Okay, if I look at it through his lens, it's actually probably not as mean as I thought it was, or
giving people the benefit of the doubt that it's coming from a good place.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, and then
No, I think that's a great way to end it right there. That was good. You wrapped it up
awesome.
well.
Jonathan, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it. This is a topic that
We could go on for hours.
Yeah,
bro.
we could.
We could
again,
communicate for hours on this.
We should have had this communication. I don't know how, I mean, it's our fault for not getting it on our list,
Yeah.
but
You're
I'm
welcome.
glad we saved it for
You're
this
welcome.
because this is great.
Thanks, Jonathan. Really appreciate it.
But thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
Make sure to follow us on social media platforms. Instagram, The Darren Woodson Show, Twitter, The Darren Woodson Show, YouTube, The Darren Woodson Show. Follow us, engage with us, communicate with us.
Yes.
We will receive it through the lens. Make sure to label what kind of person you are too, so that we can actually receive it.
Who knows? Maybe somebody listening will be a next guest on a
guest.
roundtable.
Yeah.
That's right.
If you've got a great topic to talk
That's
about.
right.
So,
But again, Jonathan, thank you so much. Any developers out there, anybody that owns land currently, want to understand what the value is, give Kimley Horn a call. They're a great company. A little plug there for you guys.
Thank you for that.
But really appreciate it. Y'all have a good day.
thanks, guys.
Thanks, y'all.